Hey guys, this is Mel, and I am back to talk about Legacies, episode 420, titled Just Don't Be a Stranger, okay? Which premiered Thursday, June 16th, 2022 on the CW. This is the third time I am recording this. The first time I tried, it was during a live reaction as I watched the episode for the first time. Had tech issues doing that. Waited a few days because it was the Father's Day weekend and my family was coming over. Just did a second recording. Uh, Following the usual recap format that I had, only to realize that it did not record or the audio didn't pick up, and I was an idiot. So now here I am doing it the third time, and at this point I'm just frustrated. But I didn't want to leave this video not having a recap because not only is it the series finale of Legacies, but it's also the series finale of the whole Vampire Diaries franchise. Um, so, huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. Also, just thank you again for coming one last time to see what I have to say about the Legacies episodes. Um, this one definitely did not go as planned for me in many different ways. So, we'll see if I can remember what I said during my second recording and if I can reduplicate that now. But let's dive right into it with what happened in this episode. So, the episode title of the quote actually changed twice. The first one, the actual official one, was Just Don't Be a Stranger, okay, which was said by Hope to Landon. The original title was actually said by Hope to Landon again in the exact same scene. Um, so that's something there. The timeline wise for the episode, it actually takes place the day after the events of 419 because Jed specifically said in this episode that he died yesterday. Yesterday being during the fight with Ken. And the episode reminder, again, like I said, this is the series finale of Legacies and the final episode of all of the Vampire Diaries franchise stuff. For feature creature of the episode, there is no new monster, thankfully. It just goes back to the original creatures of the show, and that is the students of the Salvatore School, the vampires, the witches, the werewolves, the hybrid that is Heretic Lizzie, or the Vampire Witch Lizzie, and the tribrid that is Hope of all three different species. Um, and then Wade as well, too, being in the mix of it all. But we don't see much of his power in here or any mention of that specifically. Just that he's one of the students. But anyway, storyline wise, though, again, because this episode's pretty much meant to tie off loose ends for storylines, they try to kind of give us hopes of where their future will hold. I try to figure out what to label the three storylines as, and what I figured out was the fate of the school, second, moving forward, mixed in with relationships statuses. So, the first storyline, this is the conflict of the episode, which is Alark announcing that he will be closing the school due to all the recent deaths of losing students when he promised them that he would keep them safe. We have MG from the beginning trying to change Alark's mind. Eventually, Hope tries to help him by changing Alark's mind after getting a letter from Josie about how she can kind of break through to Alark. So we do see that. By the end of it, we do see Caroline being announced as the new head mistress as Alark steps down to travel the world to spread and share their stories with their permission. Now, with the moving forward aspect of the show, we have Hope trying to struggle with the idea of the school closing down because she's considered it her home, while also trying to figure out if the school is no longer a place to call home, then where is she going to spread her father's ashes? Because if she spreads it there and it's not going to be home anymore, then she's just going to be as separated from her father as ever. So she turns to Landon in hopes that as the ferryman, he can get her a final meeting with Klaus to kind of like set things right on her end. But since he's not able to, he's able to get a final message from Klaus and deliver it to Hope himself. So we have something from there. With Cleo, we have her try to be familiar with her new powers as a Fury, her visions, try to make sense of it. Also trying to see where that brings for her own future. So we have that there. With Jed, we have him realizing that he's newly resurrected state means that he's no longer a werewolf, as he's just a human who did not trigger their werewolf gene. Um, didn't realize it at the time, but apparently we did get see this happening through Tyler Lockwood on the Vampire Diaries, who turned into a werewolf in season 2, turned into a vampire werewolf hybrid in season 3, Klaus's very first one, and then he ended up dying due to traveler magic at the end of season 5, only to be brought back through Bonnie the Anchor. And when he did come back, he ended up coming back as a human who did not have his werewolf gene triggered, which he ended up triggering at the end of season 6 when after a car crash, and he was about to die and his girlfriend was already about to die, so she forced him to kill her so that he could activate the werewolf gene and use his supernatural healing. So he's now back into a werewolf. Completely forgot all that history with Tyler until after Jed explained to Ben after his little Wolfbane's test that he thinks that he's given a second chance of not having their curse again. So that was a great moment of continuity wise, seeing it be replicated again from what they had established beforehand. So that was pretty cool there. Now, because Jed is no longer a werewolf, that leaves the alpha position up and open for Finch, who previously in the episode, earlier in the episode, she was kind of confused on what her role at the school was when originally she thought she was tied there because of Josie. But because Jed is no longer a werewolf, he passes along the alpha title to Finch, who reluctantly agrees. Um, so there's that. We also find out from Landon, one of the big things I really wanted to know is what were the consequences he would be facing after resurrecting 3 of his friends. And it turns out Landon's emotions are actually muted when he's on the living plane. To the point where it's like he knows that he loves Hope, but he doesn't feel it the same way that he originally would have. So that is something. But we also find out that he has found his home and his place in Limbo, saying that that's all he's ever wanted was to find a home, which tracks for him. With Ethan, we find him in the afterlife struggling not only to realize that he cannot be brought back to life, but then wanting to stay there and be helpful to Landon. But he ends up finding peace because he is able to help Landon get that final message to Klaus, who is in peace, so that he can get to Hope. And Ethan realizes that Hope is actually a pretty cool place than to just be in Limbo. So there's that. For the relationship side of things, we do see MG and Lizzie on the same page with each other, officially being boyfriend and girlfriend, finally having their first kiss, who was interrupted by Caroline shortly afterwards. So there's that. Also, the recognition that for Lizzie, MG is her first boyfriend, so they're both gonna. So she's gonna. This is the first time she's gonna figure out how to be a girlfriend. I think MG was kind of saying along the same lines too, maybe. With Cleo and Caleb, we do have Cleo having visions or that say that their journey, their future, is not meant to be journeyed together. Caleb doesn't want to say goodbye. He wants to still work things through and see where things go and not just be just not go the way that the visions tell him, kind of like how the visions predicate what he's doing. First off being he helps her try to break through her artistic block when it comes to her artwork. So by the end of it she's able to create art and understand of where they can go from here. Apparently, also, Caleb shared through his memories what his past was, what his origin story is. We as the audience don't see that, and I will talk about that later. Also, with Jed and Ben, Ben invites Jed to travel the world with him to see, and yeah, to travel the world together. And Jed realizes that he needs to figure out who he is outside of being an alpha to the pack, because now that he's not a werewolf, he has to figure out who he is when beforehand that's all he ever has been. So Ben invites him to travel the world with him so that they could be together trying to figure out who they are without their curses stopping them. So that is something there. Now, the last scene of the episode shows Headmistress Caroline preparing the student body for the arrival of the new students. And the final thing we see is Hope welcoming them all to the Salvatory School by calling it home. Welcome home is what she says. So that is something there. Now, tidbit wise, though, since we did talk a lot about characters already, for Ben, he says that his curse is broken due to his father's death. Not sure what particular part of Ben's curse was it. Is Ben still an immortal because he's a demigod? Was the curse having monsters always targeting him and coming after him, and that's the part that was broken? So now he's no longer has a target on his back. But yeah, there's that as well. Or the constant always dying thing is that, or was that part of his curse? So there's that. Like I mentioned before, Klaus found his peace. It was mentioned throughout the episode that where Josie is at, she's currently in Belgium at an all-girls school. She is also going to be getting the Gold, Red Oak, Red Oak God Spear that is the only weapon that can kill Hope, who sends it over to Josie for safekeeping because she told Finch that Hope can't hide it just and be the only one who knows its location just in case she ever lost control again. But she can't have it out in the open because it's an open invitation for other people to come after it and challenge her. So she sends it to Josie, knowing that it would be uh, in a safe place uh, with Josie, who will also help her come back if it were to be needed to be used against her. So there's that. I did mention briefly that with Alaric stepping down as headmaster, he wanted to travel the world, and he asked the students permission if he could share their stories on his travels. I think he wants them to write a book, like a history kind of book, to commemorate what they all went through, so it's not completely lost in the lost in the dust. I believe I'm not particularly sure. I thought if anything, it would be him being the one to go on recruitment drive, which is what I thought Caroline was doing while she was away looking for info on the merge. But yeah, that seems to be the case there. Most shocking moment of the episode, I will have to say, is Caroline's return to being the headmistress. Because as I said, I thought she already had that position. Like, he would be headmaster and she would be headmistress. Or she was already connected to the school in that capacity. But her being reinstated as it makes it seem like she was never in that position. So that kind of surprised me. And maybe it was just my own head canon that had it being different. Plus, it also shocked me that Caroline was even present. I mean, you kind of hope, but I did miss her name popping up in the opening credits, so that was my own bad for not paying attention. But yeah, it was a nice surprise seeing her on screen. But let's go to favorite moments. First thing I really liked was the callbacks that we saw. So the very final voiceover of the series was Hope's voiceover about villains attending the school and now learning how to be heroes. It was it kind of parallels or is starts off in the very similar fashion to the initial voiceover of the full series, if not in the series trailer, then in the pilot that she had about them all thinking that they were villains, um, and needing to find out how to be heroes of their own story. It was great to see it come full circle with Hope claiming that she isn't a child of a villain, but she is a hero, and she's come to learn those new aspects about it. It's also kind of reminiscent of how the Vampire Diaries finale ended with every character kind of doing their own voiceover, like reading a diary in a sense. So that was kind of a huge tie-in back to that. A great callback I really liked was the return of Josie's necklace, the one that made Quiet Things Heard, that was given to her by Hope for her 16th birthday. It was great to learn that that necklace was used in order to get the voice of humanity Hope a little bit stronger in New Orleans when she was in the presence of the Michelsons. It was also great to see that she sent it back to Hope in hopes that it would um, help her hear her own quiet voice, and then to have that be passed on to Alaric, who needed it to hear um, his own truth that was being suppressed by the fear talking about the school closing. So it's just great seeing it come back full circle and play its part, and especially since it was introduced back in season one. So that's something there. And another callback I really liked was Klaus's return, not only with his outfit being the same one that he wore when he died, but also just all the old montage memory flashes we got of essentially it is Klaus's depiction of all of his memories with Hope. Said she was a baby all the way to the last time he's seen her when he was alive. It was great to see that reminiscent feeling because that's from the originals, uh, which ended 3 years ago or 4 years ago even, and then it expanded over 5 years of history of a 5 years of footage, I guess we could say. So it's really that is the moment that really got my emotions going. Also, Klaus's speeches. I always love Klaus's speeches, whether it's a speech of love, a speech of betrayal, or a speech of rage. He always invoked such an emotion with his speeches that like you can't help but listen to what he has to say. And it was really great for an opportunity for him to say those final words to Hope. And yeah, I mean, I definitely wish that we got to see a lot more, and I definitely wish that Klaus was able to, or like Hope was able to actually hug her father again, even if it was for a brief moment where they could be on the same plane of existence, and just have an actual conversation with each other. But if she can't have that without being dead, then I'm glad that he was able to get this final message out to her. because the only other option would have been if they reunited in limbo. But the idea that he did find his peace is also a great thing to know. Um, but it's also very tricky too because with Hope, who's meant to live forever, um, on the one hand, Klaus would want his child to live forever and not have to die, but at the same time, her dying is the only way that he's ever going to get reunited with her in peace. So it's kind of a tricky thing of like in which route he wants his child to go down. Because on the one hand, like I said, he'd want her to live her life, and for her, she has the opportunity to live forever. So it's kind of like at one point would he be able to see her, if he would be able to see her at all. So I guess that's kind of the question there. But I really like the idea that he was able to get this message out. So that's something there. An overall favorite I did have was just Hope and Landon, because I actually did not think they would get all the scenes they had together in this episode. If anything, I thought it would just be the one scene where Hope asked Landon if it was possible to see her father, and then they gave their hug goodbye. I thought that would be the end of what, like, that would be their last scene together of the series. I even thought their goodbye in limbo a few episodes ago was their final time we'll see them on screen together. But to see them have them they had to see them have all the scenes that they did in this episode was something else. Like, it was kind of like, oh, you're making up for the fact that you barely had any scenes together this whole season, and it was all kind of like, oh, here it is, all of them in this episode. And it was just great to see the dynamic. Even though Landon's emotions are still muted, you still get that sense of care and how he wants to help her, and it was great to see that. And the idea that she asks him not to be a stranger kind of implies to me that she wants him to visit, and the fact that he was able to arrive to the land of the living without her specifically summoning him makes me think that he is able to travel between the two and be able to visit maybe every now and then. So I'm really hopeful for that. And speaking of hopeful, another thing I really liked is that we got a little sense of what all the bright futures seem to be headed for all the characters. We got a sense of where they wanted to go, or what their plans are, or have them see this self-reflection in themselves of like how far they've come. And I really appreciate that, especially like just knowing that like it's a new beginning for them as well too. um and also that nobody died, that's also a reason why, or that no one's about to die. So that was a good moment to see there. A bonus favorite I did have was the fact that MG's speech in defense for the school staying open to Alaric and Lizzie. I really like he was trying to cater to the benefit of why the school should be open, and how the students have found family in the school. It's their safe place to just be themselves and to learn freely of who they are and where they come from. So I really like that MG was trying to campaign for the school to be open for those reasons. So I really appreciate that. Now, when it comes to the peeve moments, initially when I watched the finale on the 16th, I was kind of content with the with how it ended. I was a little worried going into it that we'd have unexpected deaths, um, in the mundane, how we would be losing characters, but we didn't get that. So it's like, okay, I'm good with that. We saw bright futures ahead for characters. If we wanted to write fan fiction continuing forward, we can, um, and just go from there. But after the last few days of like really thinking about it, in comparison to the Vampire Diaries finale, which had at 10 familiar faces popping in for the finale, versus the very emotional finale we got with the originals, my bad, and the two major deaths we got and the big goodbyes that came from it. Um, this one kind of fell in the middle when it came to emotions. I know with both of those finales for Vampire Diaries and the originals, I was definitely feeling the emotions of like, oh, I can't believe it's gone. It's like, oh, it's gonna feel like such a hole, and it's just like really like, I know it. I'm pretty sure I was in tears for quite some time after the episode has ended. For this episode, though, I was more of like, okay, that I guess that's how it's ended. Okay, that makes sense. And then like I was just content with it. And the only emotion I did feel was during Klaus's speech, and that brief memory montage moment we have was the only time that I was truly brought to tears. And then by the end of it, I was like, oh, I'm done. So I don't know. It's kind of like a mixed emotions of like, yeah, you ended things where it's like I'm not furious, by like the fate of any of the characters. But yeah, so it's just a weird feeling too. I will say this though, one peeve I did find, it was just me more thinking of like, it's kind of hard because now it's more of, I did mention it before. Well, I'm really grateful that we got to have um the letter and I guess the video send off from Klaus to Hope. A part of me did wish that Klaus and Hope would be in physically the same place together, that they'd be able to hug each other, that they'd be able to just like, because they gave the most fiercest hugs from that memory montage of like seeing that love between them. It was just like, I kind of wish we got that moment between them. And I know logistically that not only in the show, because Klaus is dead and the only way they could be physically in the same place, as I mentioned, is if Hope were to die, and we don't want that, but logistically in the sense of like production wise, very possible that Joseph Morgan wasn't available to be filming the same time that Daniel Rose Russell was filming, just from his own schedule on a different show. So that's always a possibility too, which plays a factor. So it's kind of, that's definitely one of the things I would have preferred fan fiction of, like somebody writing up like them actually being in the same physical plane together for a brief moment. Also, kind of the reason why in the previous episode when they were facing Ken, that I had hoped in my own fan fiction that Klaus would have appeared at the Limbo Bar to Landon and kind of hearing from the friends that like Hope was in trouble, and that he'd like make a deal saying like, if you bring me back temporarily, I can help you defeat the god and such, and that way he'd get his final battle with alongside Hope, and then also get his goodbye as well too. So it's a little tricky. It's a little harder too. But then in tying it with that, I was kind of, when I got to thinking about Caroline's return, happy surprise and all, but I was kind of surprised that we never got a scene between Hope and Caroline. And I thought, if anything, maybe it's just maybe it was just the whole timing of like, how long did they have Candace on set? Like how much time did they have to film her stuff? But I honestly thought, if Hope couldn't ask her own family about what Klaus wanted, the next one would be that she would ask Caroline, because Caroline had this special connection to Klaus. She knew a side of him that maybe her family didn't see, because it was also a romantic kind of a situation. Just like how like her her final moments with Aurora were about what Klaus had done, and then rectifying that he did have two sides to him. So a part of me thought, if Caroline were to come back, that at least Hope would have gone to her asking for some advice, because it had me going back to the episode where Hope was competing in Miss Mystic Falls and she was wearing Caroline's blue dress, and finding out from Roman that it was a dress that Klaus had picked out for Caroline. And her reaction to that, if anything, that's the moment she found out that they did have a past. If she didn't remember it in the season 5 of the originals being shown, I would have thought there would have been some kind of conversation between Hope and Caroline about what Klaus would have wanted, if we couldn't see Rebecca or Freya or Cole or Marcel giving her any insight on that. So that was just something there, like after a few days of me thinking, like, why wouldn't there be a moment like that? Like, shouldn't there be a moment like that? So that's the small peeve there, where it was like a missed opportunity, which maybe I might have to look into fan fiction for that. So that's something there. My final peeve is a big one, because it has to deal with Cleo being shown like a lot. It's about Caleb's past. Again, it's always been hinted at and it's always been alluded for, but I honestly cannot. Did we ever get the full picture of how Caleb became a vampire and who did it to him? We found out a bits of like how of that massacre at the school after he turned. We found out that someone had found him after he turned, but we don't know who specifically turned him, except it was someone he thought he could trust. But then in this episode, Caleb opens his mind to Cleo for her to see his memories and like get the full picture, full truthful picture. She does so, which is fine. The peeve I have is the fact that as an audience member, we don't see what Cleo sees in his memories. And as someone who's always being told to show and not tell, they did not show us what those memories were. And they didn't really tell us what those memories were either. It was always these cryptic messages. So for me, I was a little peeved by that because I've been waiting to hear how Caleb was turned because we got MG's vampire origin story in season 1. We just got Jed's werewolf origin story earlier in this season when they had to deal with that killer clown. But in this one, it's always been fragments of Caleb's origin story we would get. I mean, we even got Ethan's origin story as a Pokoji because it happened on the show. So for me, when it was shown for for Cleo to quote see the memories and us as the audience member don't, I was a little miffed by that because I was hoping to see it to get more insight. But then at the same time, on a production level, I would understand why they wouldn't want to because that's not only another set of casting depending. Well, not really, because Caleb would have been the same age, because as a vampire, he wouldn't have aged. But it would have been a whole set of new locations. It would have been a few more other characters and a huge more backstory to figure out and introduce all in a finale that's meant to tie up where everyone is at instead of introducing new details. So like I get that production wise, but then as a fan it's like I don't feel like I got the full origin story with Caleb. And I'm a little annoyed by that because I kept hinting at it for the last season, but then it's just like you never got to finish it. So that's the peeve there. But let's move on to random questions very quickly. Um, was it meant to be implied that Cleo would become the next headmaster when she was in the office when Caroline arrived? Like she'd be the future one. On the one hand, it's like, well, if Caroline's headmistress, she's a vampire, so I'd assume she'd always be it. But at the same time, she might want to take a break and have someone else take over, which could be Cleo. I will be honest though, like right in the moment when Alark was just about to announce who would take his place, I thought it would be Hope because the camera was focusing on Hope. And just because for me, she had called them out and saying like maybe they needed a headmaster who could take on the pressure. So that come with being it. And I thought, well, Hope would actually be the greatest choice because not only did um, Klaus help fund the school for it to be a safe place for her, but as a tribrid, she's the one most capable of protecting the students at the school on her own without needing to draw from the students themselves to help her. So I thought, if anything, Hope would feel the most protected by this place as well, and her as head mistress would make sense, aside from the fact that she is still a bit young to take on that position. But I could definitely see her being headmistress one day, and then. So I'm just wondering if Cleo, her moment in the office was meant to imply that she would be more likely the future headmistress after maybe like when Caroline needs a break, or I hope it's not because Caroline dies and that's why she takes over. But yeah, that was a question there. Another question was, did anyone else think that Josie reunited with Penelope when it was mentioned that Josie was attending school in Belgium? In my live reaction of recording, I did question if it was going to be Penelope. That because like why pick Belgium? Because isn't that where Penelope went to specifically? Why not name a different country than one that you already implied another character and ended up going with? You know. So I definitely thought of Penelope there. Another question. Will Jed and Ben eventually return to the school, kind of like they're traveling the world during like their summer vacation and then they'll be coming back, or are they actually just done with the school? I hope they come back and like visit the super squad and such, but it is nice to kind of get away and like to see the world as well too. So that's a question there. Another question I've constantly been asking myself though, but shouldn't Hope be old enough to actually leave the school now? Because in her her last outfit of the series is her dressed in the school uniform, and yes, they're inviting the new students, but like, isn't Hope technically old enough to graduate? Because I'm assuming like you'd be done boarding school at the age of 18 and you'd be off. The series started with Hope being 17, and we know at least a year or so has passed because we saw both the 16th and 17th birthdays for Josie and Lizzie. And then their birthday is supposed to happen 2 months before Hope's birthday. So if we got to see their 16th birthday, that means a few months later, Hope would have had her 18th birthday. And supposedly that was when that occurred when Hope was in Malivore, because she didn't return until after the summer break, and she was supposedly there for quite some time. So it's safe to say that maybe she's 19, but then would she still be a student, or is she now there to kind of like make up for her final year, or is she now just at the school in a different capacity? I'm kind of wondering, because like the one thing I did not like about Legacies is just the whole pacing of time, because I honestly do not know if it's been 4 years that passed for them, or if it's literally has only been a year, like 2 years that's passed. And then Vampire Diaries also had that issue too, because they spent 2 seasons in 1 year, 2 seasons in another year, and then after that you just don't really know unless you pay attention to when they have Christmas episodes and such. But yeah, that's the question. How old did we end up with Hope at the end of this? So that's question there. My final question is, will Landon frequently visit Hope in the land of the living now that he is the ferryman? And also because she questioned, like, don't be a stranger, which kind of implies, like, you can visit often when you can. So I'm wondering, will he do that? Will it take on him a toll on him anytime he does that? Does he need to be summoned in order to visit her? That would be the next question there. It'd actually be kind of cool that like his new state of power will allow him to be able to visit. Because it definitely will be a lonely place if he's never going to be able to see them. Um, in in peace, because he can only touch the shoreline. So that would be something there. But otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it. What did you guys think of the series finale? What did you guys like about it? What do you think you would have hoped to have happened? I really want to think what you thought would happen going into it, and then how you felt after it happened. Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, opinions about all that, and also how do you feel about it, the franchise now ending after 13 years. It's still a little weird thinking about it, because it's definitely this universe definitely has the Vampire Diaries, or not Vampire Diaries, the vampire and werewolf lore that resonates with me the most. It's very specific. It has its own rules. They've established those rules, and it's always my go-to every time I always want to write a fan fiction. I always want to place it in the world of the Vampire Diaries universe, because of how very specific all the different rules are, and like the nuances of the different creatures. And it's just like it's very different in their own way, except, and it still has those iconic attributes of such characters. So it's, yeah, it's also 13 years of trying to continue a mythology that was already established, and that is something I really appreciate, and kind of the reason why I started doing these recap videos, because I wanted to see if the mythology established in one show would still carry on in the subsequent spin-offs that came from it. And it did, and then it even expanded it even further and continued keeping with that continuity. So I'm very happy with that. It's still going to be a little weird not knowing that there's going to be another episode in the franchise. Oh, I forgot to say this as well, though. Caroline, the character of Caroline Forbes, is the only character in the whole Vampire Diaries franchise to have appeared in the very first episode. That is episode 101 of the Vampire Diaries, and the very last episode of the franchise, which is this episode, episode 420 of the Legacies. She's the only character to do that. The only one who had the possibility of doing that would have been a Lark, but he didn't appear until episode 12 of season 1, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check with the number above. But yeah, so that's quite a huge feat in itself right there for Caroline. And that's also just something, a legacy, like a legacy in itself, not the show, but like the whole franchise. But yeah, still a little weird, but I definitely want to know what you guys think about it all ending. Is there, I know I'm going to be going to fan fiction for a few things. But I'm glad everybody still survived by the end of it. Um, it would have been interesting to know what they had planned for a season 5. I know there's supposedly a deleted scene that involved Jen. That would have been the cliffhanger for the season if they did get the season 5. I hope they released that so we had like a sense of an idea of what like it could have been. But yeah, what did you guys think? Again, comment down below. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I reblog um, uh, photos, videos, quotes, GIFs, all that stuff. Completely blanking here. All found in one place. I am behind, but now that Legacies is over, I might just pick a day and just reblog everything that I missed. WordPress account, link for that is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still a work in progress as well. My WordPress does include my Tumblr tagging list, which has to be updated, so just being mindful of that. But otherwise, I think that is it. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I still don't know. Maybe I'll do a Legacies ranking video for the seasons. I'm not quite sure yet. Um, Maybe I need a bit more time to adjust. But yeah, if you have any ideas of a video you'd want me to do for Legacies, please let me know in the comments down below. I feel like there's still lots to talk about. I mean, I definitely feel like there's some missed opportunities, but with the show being over, you can't really do anything about it now. But yeah. Also missed opportunities just because on a production level, you know? But yeah, definitely excited to hear what you guys have to say. Next video I will be posting on my channel will be my recap review video for Motherland Fort Salem episode 301, which airs on June 21st. So my video would come out either a few days after that because now I got to adjust to editing on a different day of the week. And trying to align that with my work schedule. So just be on the lookout on that. Again, it's another fantasy show about witches, also in its final season as well. Trailer has me super hyped on what the final 10 episodes are going to be about. But yeah, that's a video for another day. So I'm gonna end it here. Thank you so much again for tuning in. Not only for this video, for any of my legacy videos, I truly appreciate it. I hope you come back to check out my other videos. And if you do, subscribe and click the notification bell if that's your case, because I don't always post on a schedule, usually around a certain day. But yeah, just thank you guys so much for the support during this final season. Or I guess unknowingly this final season. It's been unexpected, but yeah, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week wherever you are, and I hope you stay safe. Take care. Bye.